UNL for political science.
Thank you. We'll now open our hearing on LB302, Senator Murman.
Good afternoon, Chair Sanders and members of the Government Committee. My name is Senator Dave Murman, and I represent the 38th District. This bill is fairly simple. If it were passed, Nebraska would eliminate the old, tried and true, failed practice of changing our clocks back and forth. For some history, the United States first adopted daylight savings time during World War I as a way to conserve energy. But a 2011 study from MIT found that daylight savings time actually slightly increases energy use. So if it's not working to its intended purpose, we ought to reconsider why we have it. Ending this practice has the potential for improved outcomes for public health, safety, and the economy. In terms of health, let's look at the American Medical Association has to say. In 2022, they released a statement supporting the end of daylight savings time and enacting permanent standard time, writing, "Data show that the sudden change from standard time to daylight savings time in March is associated with significant public health and safety risks, including increased risk of adverse cardiovascular events, mood disorders, and motor vehicle crashes. Some studies suggest that the body clock does not adjust to daylight savings time even after a few months. This is also supported by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. This is also a positive change for our public safety. A 2020 study out of the University of Colorado Boulder examining over 730,000 motor vehicle accidents from 1996 to 2017 found an elevated rate of about 6% in the work week following the spring transition to daylight savings time. Finally, there are significant benefits to the economy. One study found that following the time change, there was an increase in workplace injuries resulting in more days of work lost, while another found an uptick in drowsy employees scrolling the internet for non-work related activities. Like that doesn't usually happen. But the most compelling argument to me is that very shortly after I had introduced this legislation, I received emails in support from Nebraska farmers writing about how they would appreciate the extra morning sun. I'll also quickly note that I have an amendment. The original copy of the bill, I believe, used last year's permanent daylight savings bill as a model for drafting. However, in order to adopt permanent daylight time, other states have to join in for it to take effect. While in order to adopt permanent standard time, a state can simply opt out of daylight savings time, such as Arizona, which has already done so. This has the benefit that under this legislation, we could immediately put an end to the process of changing clocks back and forth, but in order to adopt permanent daylight time, we would have to wait for the potentially slow process of other states acting, or even worse, waiting for Congress to act. We know how long that might take. To conclude, I'll leave you with a few maps displaying the time of the latest sunrises throughout the state and the number of days with a post 8 a.m. sunrise for both permanent standard time and permanent daylight savings time. It seems, based on this committee hearing and the debate on the floor last year, that there is generally wide support for ending clock changing. What I hope is that this map, combined with the fact that we can immediately adopt permanent standard time as opposed to waiting, convinces you that permanent standard time is the best way to go. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward to any other questions. I've got the maps here.
Thank you, Senator Murman. We'll check to see if there's any questions from the committee. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Senator Murman, I just have an administrative thing, maybe I don't understand. In your amendment where it says on page 3, strike lines 1 through 12, I understand that, but at the very end of page 2, where it has 2A, it says the standard time of the state of Nebraska shall be the time, and then nothing after that. Should that sentence be struck as well?
You're on page 2.
The last line on page 2 on 31. Hi, you want me to bring it over?
I've got all page 1.
Here, I'll bring it over to you. So here it says, line 1 through 12 here, it's good. But there's this on the preceding page.
That's the bill.
So this just says the standard time of the state of Nebraska shall be the time. Is that still remain, or is that supposed to be taken as well? What do you want to get back?
I can get back to you.
Okay.
I think maybe it should still be there, but I'll get back to you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the only question I have.
No. Yeah, I'll just go take it.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, yeah, actually I do. Yeah.
You're good, Senator Anderson.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on.
I thought he was talking about 2 pages.
Senator Lanowski.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Murman, so I've only been through like 124 of these changes. Daylight savings time is what's coming up in March, correct? And so what you're really talking about is we would say, stay on our summer schedule? I just want to make sure that's what I'm thinking.
We'll switch to daylight savings times in March if we don't change anything. Right now, we're on standard
And you would say
time.
then we want to stay at that?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
The opposite, we want to stay on what we are now?
We're on
Okay.
standard time now, so we want to stay on what we're on now. Is it-
Okay.
I think that's what I said, maybe not. But anyway, I want to stay with what we're on now, standard time.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Senator Murman?
Yes,
Senator Whittemper?
thank you. Appreciate you being here, and I guess this question would be for you and also Senator Hunt. Have you gotten any opposition from firefighters? Because we're gonna have to come up with a new slogan of change your clock, change your battery. So I see an undue,
Added expense.
yes.
So you can add that to the
I
fiscal
don't
note.
know that I've got any feedback from first responders, but maybe they'll have to change the battery on maybe first of the year, Christmas,
all right.
another day.
Thank you, just good fun.
So that'd be part of the fiscal note, right, to go with the new slogans, add that to the fiscal note.
Are there any other questions for Senator Murman? See none? You'll stay for closing?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and begin with proponents for LB302. Please, come forward.
And I have the opposition to the other bill. Do you want that now or later? Very good. I'm going to 12 copies. Thank you. It's a little low.
I know, it's really low for me.
Okay, am I in position? Can you hear me?
Yes, we might want to speak up just a little bit louder because of that.
I'm going to bring that a little closer. Okay, Chair Sanders, members of the committee, thank you for having me here. My name is Mr. JP. Last name is spelled Papa Echo Alpha. I'm the president of Safe Standard Time, a nonprofit working across the country on bills like these. I'm also the co-chair of the Coalition for Permanent Standard Time, a collaborative effort with the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, National Sleep Foundation, Sleep Research Society, Society for Research on Biological Rhythms, the American Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine, the Association of Chest Physicians, and one more that I'm forgetting and regret forgetting. I'm also the great-grandson of farmers in Iowa. My great-grandfather taught me to tell the time from the sun, where high noon is 12 p.m., and you divide the hours like a sundial from there, and that is roughly what standard time is. It's the real, honest-to-God sundial time. It's naturally set to the sun. It's objectively set for a fair balance of morning and evening sunlight. And that morning sunlight is most especially important to people who are working outdoors in the morning, such as farmers, construction workers, ranchers, but also service personnel, firefighters were mentioned, the baristas who open up your cafes in the morning. The people who have to get up earlier than the rest of us, they need that morning light that standard time provides. There are hundreds of studies across decades showing that standard time is best for our health, safety, and our performance in school and the workplace. It lets us sleep a little bit extra in the morning every day, and that just helps us in all walks of life. Standard time has been observed permanently for decades without incident in Arizona, Hawaii, all 5 U.S. territories, and most nations on Earth. Mexico just 2 years ago went to permanent standard time. We have bills in 20 states for permanent standard time, including South Dakota, Kansas, Missouri. We had a bill that passed through the North Dakota House just last week, so it's going to the Senate side now. More states than ever are considering bills just like this for permanent standard time. If you want it to be contingent, triggered on other states doing it first, that's fine by me. Or if you want to charge bravely ahead and go first, that's fine by me. We support it in either way. And we would oppose permanent daylight time, and I'll be talking about that when that next bill called up later. So yes, please on this bill, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you like. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. Senator Greca.
Thank you for coming in and for your testimony. Just a quick question. You said that by switching to standard time, people would be sleeping in more?
It would allow people to sleep a little bit later every morning. Daylight saving time is a mandate to wake early. If you turn your clock ahead an hour right now, your morning alarm tomorrow will go off an hour early. And it will go off an hour early every single morning until you put your clock back onto standard time.
But if the sun's up, wouldn't you wake up?
Most people sleep naturally past sunrise in the summer.
Okay.
So daylight time would be forcing people to get up and go to work in the dark all of winter, which most people don't want to do. Most people would rather wake up with the sun, as we do on the weekends commonly. And that's what standard time makes easier to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Senator Lanowski.
Thank you, Chair. Do you have any studies regarding children, like
Absolutely.
toddlers on up? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, there have been studies so Russia tried permanent daylight saving time about 10 years ago for 3 years, and they found it was significantly increasing accidents, fatal car accidents, and depression, and it was hurting school grades, permanent daylight time, that is. Okay. Also, Indiana recently moved from permanent standard time to daylight saving time, unfortunately, under pressure of the business community. And when Indiana dropped permanent standard time and went to daylight time, they found that it was decreasing SAT scores. And one more note, too, in 1974, the United States tried permanent daylight time, and I think it tripled the deaths of school children. When we're on daylight time, you'll find when you spring your clock forward in March, suddenly it's dark in the morning. And so there's two factors there. When it's dark, that decreases visibility. But also when you're waking people up in the dark, they are sleeping less, so they're groggier. And that's actually the stronger factor, is that less sleep, that grogginess increases fatal car accidents by significant figures when we're on daylight time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Senator Kavanaugh.
Oh, thanks. I pulled up, thanks for being here, Mr. P.
Thank you.
I was confused because JP is also.
I apologize. Yeah, it's a common mistake, though.
So I pulled up your website. I'm just looking at, this map is interesting.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm looking at the national map. And I guess my one note, you're from Arizona?
I'm originally from Iowa, and I moved to Arizona a couple of years ago.
was that philosophical to do with the time?
That was a large factor, yes. Also, my parents recently moved there, retired, so we could look after each other a bit.
So checks a couple boxes. A couple of my comments, obviously I hate the time change, everybody does. But I look at the time and I see, there's benefits to the time change because looking at the summertime, we'll just say Lincoln, Nebraska, sunrise on June 20th under Senator Murman's bill would be 4:45 in the morning.
Yes.
4:55.
Yeah.
That's a very early sunrise.
Well, it's about the same that we have in Phoenix, Arizona, and I assure you that I sleep until 7 a.m. regardless.
Okay. And then obviously the trade-off is then in the winter time or the summertime, then the sun goes down sooner as well, right?
Yes, the sun does set probably around 5 o'clock here with your standard time in the winter. If you tried permanent daylight time, you could push that till 6, but still most people are commuting. It's not like they have time to go play 9 rounds of golf after work, and it's probably cold and windy, maybe even snowy. So you might get a sliver of extra daylight in the evening, but then you get all that extra darkness in the morning that people do not like when we're on daylight time. So we want to keep that morning light with standard time.
But I guess my question, just looking at your map, is I guess the further east you are in a time zone, the later your sunrises are, and the further south you are, right? Is that
the reverse. The further to the north and the west, you're going to have later sun times.
Okay. So I guess my question is, does the time change maybe serve more of a purpose in communities that are further northwest? So
If you are further to the east, you probably like daylight saving time, and if you live further to the west, you probably like standard time. But standard time, the objective of standard time, the design of it is to make it as fair and balanced for everyone everywhere. And I believe strongly that if we could realign the clock with standard time as close to the sun as possible, then the market from there, businesses can, if you want to open your doors an hour earlier in June and close them an hour earlier in June, let the business community decide that rather than trying to have government mandate when we're opening and closing doors.
well, thanks for being here, and your website is certainly interesting. So thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Senator Anderson?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I would make the comment as a career military guy, 4:55 in the morning is not that early.
Thank you, sir. My mother would agree.
Based on the law, it would be implemented when Iowa, Kansas, South Dakota, and Wyoming would adopt the same change. Do you have any indications that any or all of those are taking the same initiative that we are?
So I mentioned that North Dakota, they have a bill for standard time that passed the House and is going to the Senate right now. Things are looking good in North Dakota. South Dakota, just yesterday, the Assistant Majority Leader filed a bill for permanent standard time, so that looks very good in South Dakota also. We had a bill in Kansas that was heard last week. It had a good reception, no vote yet. So we're getting a nice alignment of this column of states from the Dakotas down to Kansas. Now, to the east and west of you, it's a little more mixed. Missouri is leaning towards standard time. Arkansas is leaning towards standard time. My home state of Iowa, unfortunately, is a little behind the times on looking at daylight time. So I would certainly support revising that list of contingencies. You could reduce the numbers that are named. You could say any one contingent state, not even name a state as far as I know. That would be to your wisdom to decide if you wanted to amend that trigger. I would support it in any way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? See none? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Penn, and any other proponents? Please come forward. Welcome to the Government Committee.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sanders and members of the committee. Thank you for having me. I'm Patrick Greenwood, Patrick Greenwood, and I live in Omaha. And I come in support of and ask for your yes vote on LB302, restoring permanent standard time and ending daylight saving time in Nebraska. Do you sometimes wish there were more hours in a day? I know I do. There is an ever-present tension between commercial economic interests and health interests, all competing for the same amount of time, limited time. Retail is in my blood. My family operated a small-town independent grocery. I understand that for-profits and nonprofits alike are driven to assure the continued success of their ventures. But I think this is a classic tail wagging the dog situation. But what I mean by that is healthy, restful sleep is a vital resource. Each person must make responsible use of this resource and cannot surrender this duty by blindly reacting to vendors and schedules. Research conclusively shows that the structure of daylight saving time artificially induces an unhealthy pressure to get up earlier and to go to sleep later. This pressure is pervasive. It exists every day. Daylight saving time is in effect. On the average, 19 minutes of sleep is lost every day. Daylight saving time is in effect. And this sleep lost time is cumulative. Permanent daylight saving time requires congressional approval, which I think is quite unlikely. By making standard time permanent, you will end clock switching and model a simple, streamlined structure for Nebraskans and other states that can adopt that promotes healthy sleep. For the good of all Nebraskans, please set aside any personal favoritism you may have for daylight saving time. Thank you for your attention and this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwood, for your testimony. We'll see if we have any questions from the committee. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I was trying not to ask a lot of questions today, but I just love your graph. Thanks for being here, Mr. Greenwood. Did you generate this?
I did, and it's very dense, and I'm available to answer any questions you have about it.
Well, first off, I love any time we're trying to stick it to the man. Take a look at the graph.
And the man, I should clarify, the man in that case to me is, all businesses, anybody that wants to get your dollar, even, school districts, school schedules, whatever external schedules you have.
Yeah, I'm all about it. So I guess I'm just trying to yeah, you're right, it's dense. I'm trying to read it. So am I reading it right? I'm looking at, let's say 1, 2, 3, and then there's the numbers, and then, so sleep 7, time to the man 11, relax and recreate 6, so it's second one from the bottom, I guess.
Second one from the bottom is an example of your typical Monday through Friday schedule under daylight saving time.
Okay, and then the one above that is standard time.
Exactly.
All right, now I'm with you. And so at some point, I guess the line there, you'll be working in either one of them when the sun is down.
During the winter, yes.
Yeah, okay, during the winter. Oh, okay, so where are the months? How am I following, or is that?
I picked the dates for the winter. I picked 2 dates, November 21st and January 21st.
Okay,
And those dates roughly have the same sunrise and sunset times.
gotcha.
And I did the same thing for the summer months.
I see. Okay, now I got you. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents on LB 302? Please come forward. Welcome.
Hi, Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Ryan Nickell. That is spelled RyanNickell, representing myself as a proponent to LB302. Last year I was listening to this debate and I was flip-flopping over this issue, but I became interested in it. But so I took the time after LB34, the next bill was introduced, to actually read up on this sort of stuff. And what sold me on permanent standard time was the argument about golf, basically. So I went back and reread the transcript, and I noted a comment made by former Senator Steve Murman, that he was contacted by a lot of people from his district that wanted the opposite of this permanent daylight saving time, but also that the people who were proponents of that were all golf players and whatnot that don't care about the health of everyone else and are just want to hit 9 holes after work. And I'm like, what do we owe them? You know? So I find that I think it is driven by, that daylight saving time is driven by consumerism and exploitation of labor. And for what I understand, back in World War II, back in World War I, when daylight saving time was first a thing, it was created by liberals, basically, under the classical sense of the word liberalism, which is free market-driven capitalism, that they wanted to extract the maximum value from the worker and increase consumer spending, but also, my yellow light's on. But also they were pushing this argument that they wanted that it would reduce coal consumption, which I think is a lie. I think they were just pushing that to drive consumer spending. So I do support permanent standard time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nickell, for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? See none? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other proponents? Please. Welcome back.
Hi. My name is Grace Jacobson, spelled Gracejacobson. And in all honesty, I'm a proponent of both bills. What matters to me is ending the time change. My reason for this is rather personal. Part of it is because I'm on medications that must be taken multiple times a day at specific times. The time change makes this difficult. It means I have to recalculate exactly when alarms need to be because my phone automatically changes. Well, my body, it's only been 3 hours. It hasn't been 4. The other thing is there is a known and documented increase in heart attacks and strokes in the spring when we when we spring forward and we lose an hour of sleep. My beloved aunt, in my opinion, I think she would not have had her brain aneurysm had we not dealt with daylight savings time. I know that's conjecture, that's anecdotal, but personally, as other experts have testified, it's bad for our health. It causes extra stress that we don't need. And personally, either way, I will be happy if we stop with the time change. It'll make everyone's lives easier. We'll have less traffic accidents, we'll have less heart attacks, we'll have less strokes, and that's what matters to me, because I don't really benefit from either side. I've got a sleep disorder. I don't get to sleep when I want to sleep or need to sleep anyways, so I just want other people to be safer and healthier. So, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? See none, thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon. I feel like I've already been called up here a couple of times. Joe Kohout, K-O-H-O-U-T. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sanders and members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. I appear before you today as the registered lobbyist on behalf of the Nebraska Golf Alliance, and I appear today in opposition to this bill. And the Nebraska Golf Alliance is a coalition of golf-related industries, including the Nebraska section of the Professional Golfers Association, the Nebraska Club Managers Association, and the Nebraska Golf Course Superintendents Association. Together, we work to ensure that legislation and executive actions within the state of Nebraska enhance the player experience, and we speak with one voice on issues affecting golf. We testify in opposition to LB302 because there are over 300 golf courses in Nebraska that could be harmed by the change to year-round standard time. By eliminating an hour of evening daylight, 302 would drastically cut into the most profitable and accessible time for golfers to play. In 2023, municipal golf courses throughout the state hosted 500 golfers over the summer season. These are based on by the way, the numbers I'm going to use are based on a free decision by these courses to respond with information. So it may seem a little low, but that's the data source on this. Over 500 golfers in a summer season, generating over $700,000 in revenue. For some courses, leagues after 4 p.m. accounted for 35 to 40% of yearly revenue. Additionally, golf instructional programs reported that nearly 50% of their lessons are taught after 4 p.m. With fewer evening hours available, Nebraska's golf courses will lose revenue, be forced to raise prices, and in some cases could be driven out of business. Municipal courses in particular would be hit the hardest, putting accessible and affordable golf at risk for thousands of Nebraskans. Further, this bill doesn't just hurt golf courses, it hurts the people of Nebraska. Shorter summer evenings would mean fewer opportunities for families, working professionals, and young golfers to enjoy the game, higher costs for players as courses try to compensate for lost revenue, and a decline in tourism for our beautiful golf destinations in the western part of the state. LB302 will make golf less accessible, less affordable, and less enjoyable, and Nebraska's golfers, businesses, and communities will all pay the price. We respectfully ask you to reject LB302, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Kohout. Let's see if there are any questions for you. See none?
Thank you.
Any other opponents? Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sanders and members of the committee. My name is Jason Jackson, Jason, Jackson, and I'm here to testify in opposition to LB 302. I want to say I hold Senator Murman in high esteem. I know this bill is well-intentioned. I don't presume to know what the balance of the equities are on this issue. But I wanted to testify in my personal capacity as a father of 4 young children that play youth sports, and hopefully represent that constituency, because I don't think that would be otherwise represented here. And frankly, my concern with this bill is I think it would be devastating to youth sports in Nebraska. I'll use one example. I have a high school baseball player. My oldest son plays high school baseball. As it is, the high school baseball season only goes from March until they graduate second week of May. That's a very abbreviated spring experience for our high school athletes. If you were to take away daylight savings time, I'm not sure how those athletes in high school in the spring season would have an opportunity to compete in sports. I think, in particular, I think communities that can't afford to have lights on their fields would be particularly impacted. And I think communities in western Nebraska would be particularly impacted. So for all of those reasons, I know for my own children, if they weren't in sports after school, they'd probably be looking at screens the whole time. Other young people that aren't in sports, that's one of the more constructive experiences in their day that has them in a team environment, developing and as the young people that we hope that will enable them to thrive in adulthood. So for that reason, I just hope that you'll keep that constituency in mind. I'm skeptical that our institutions would adjust to continue to afford children the opportunity to compete in youth sports earlier in the day. For example, would schools let out? Would schools adjust their schedules? I'm skeptical that other adult institutions would adjust themselves to this change to create spaces for young children to continue to compete in sports in the afternoon and the evenings if this change were to be implemented. So thank you for your consideration. That concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Check to see if there are any questions from the committee. See none? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other opponents on LB 302? Any in the neutral? Welcome.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Sanders and members of the committee, my name is Justin Brady, Justinbrady. I appear before you today as the registered lobbyist for the Nebraska Broadcasters Association. The broadcasters officially had a position of monitor on both this bill and Senator Hunt's bill. When I heard Senator Murman in his opening mention that he would look at maybe instituting this right away and removing the requirement that South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas also have to do it, then that piqued my client's interest to at least come over and say, if we're gonna do this, we'd at least like it to do as a regional area. It helps the broadcasters, obviously, with radio and TV and broadcasting. So they have no position on the original bill. There's just the comment of potentially eliminating the requirement that other states do it before we do. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Hold on, let's check with the committee if there are any questions. Senator Kavanaugh, do you have a look?
I have lots of questions, I'm just not gonna ask.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Thank you.
Are there any other in the neutral? I see none. We'll call up for closing. Senator Murman.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. Of course, I think as probably everybody knows here, I was a dairy farmer. I got up at 2:30 in the morning usually. And so I started well before sunrise and usually didn't get done until after dark. So what I really appreciated was in the morning, I wouldn't have to be in the milking parlor for 3 or 4 hours before I'd see sunlight coming in the windows. So I do prefer standard time, and not only as a dairy farmer, but also as a farmer. I think there is something to be said for your natural body clock, noticing, I worked outside a lot too, so noticing when the sun was in the middle, that was noon. I didn't have cell phone or clock. I didn't even like to wear a watch because it's kind of dangerous when you're farming. So when the sun was straight up, I knew it was lunchtime. But and then to answer some of the other things that were brought up, I didn't realize that grades actually were affected. So that caught my attention as chair of the education committee, that grades can actually be affected by not only changing the clock, but having more darkness in the morning before kids going to school in the dark. Of course, there's a safety issue there too. But, and we did hear that North and South Dakota, and I think Kansas, were all considering standard time. So that would, I think, make it better for broadcasters at least, and for us that live near the border to know that everyone else was on the same type of time. And as far as golf goes, Arizona is always on standard time, and they've got a $6 billion golf industry down there. I know they have more warm weather too, but golf is doing fine down there. And by the way, my kids played all kinds of youth sports, especially baseball. And my son, being a left-hander, was in high demand for pitching and so forth. But he started very young, and also my daughter too was in sports. And there's a lot of sunlight in the evening anyway when the kids are playing most of the sports. So, and I do live in 100 miles west of here. I still consider it eastern Nebraska, but from this perspective, it might be western Nebraska. But we've got lights on all the fields that we play on out there. So I do think the change of time is the worst thing. But if we are going to go to one time year-round, standard time is the way to go. And I'll sure take any questions.
Thank you, Senator Murman. See you from the committee if there are any questions. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Murman, I addressed earlier the issue of the implementation being dependent on Iowa, Kansas, South Dakota, and Wyoming. What's the, from my education, what's the purpose? Is that due to interstate commerce or?
I'm sure that's part of it. That was the original bills a few years ago that were more popular to go on daylight savings time, maybe, to just make things more uniform for a number of reasons. But with the amendment, we're eliminating that. But like I said, at least some of the surrounding states are are leaning towards standard time, or actually will be going towards standard time the way
Yeah,
it looks.
both bills have the same provision, and I just didn't know what was driving it, the reason. Thank you.
No, I'm eliminating that with the amendments.
Are there any questions from the committee? See none. Before we end, the position comments for the hearing record. Proponents 31, opponents 17, neutral 1. Thank you, and this now closes the hearing on LB302. We will begin our hearing on LB34. Good afternoon, Senator Hunt.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we do this every year. It's one of my favorite bills of the year. It's because it's just kind of low stakes, and I know everyone does not agree this is low stakes, but I guess compared to a lot of the things we discuss here, there's different cross-partisan alliances that you see that you don't see with a lot of other legislation, so that makes it kind of fun. You know, all in all, it kind of comes down to, are you a morning person or a night person in some ways? And so, you know, that has a lot to do with if you prefer standard time or daylight savings time. But good afternoon, Chair Sanders and fellow committee members. I'm Senator Megan Hunt, M-E-G-A-N-H-U-N-T. I represent District 8 in Midtown Omaha, and I'm here today to present LB34, a bill to implement year-round daylight savings time in Nebraska. I was a co-sponsor of this bill as long as I've been elected, when Senator Brady introduced it, when Senator Conrad introduced it, and I'm happy to continue their good work on the issue. My overall perspective is that I'm primarily interested with doing away with the time change in whatever way that Nebraskans and members of the legislature like most. But I'm partial to the one that I'm presenting today, daylight savings time, because I like more hours of daylight after work. I don't want to wake up early and do a bunch of work. I want to hang out after work and have fun in the daylight. LB34, is it 34?
Yes. 34.
Okay, thanks. LB34 would change the official time in Nebraska to remain on daylight savings time year-round. However, this change would be contingent on a federal law or policy change and the adoption of single year-round standard time by 3 adjacent states. Currently, Colorado and Wyoming have enacted laws supporting permanent daylight savings time, as this bill does, although Congress must take action for those bills to go into effect. So we need 3 surrounding states. Right now, we've got Colorado and Wyoming. So if one other one does it, then this could go into effect if Congress takes action. There seems to be, from the feedback my office has gotten over the years, a large will among Nebraska voters to end the time changes, but there's a divide about which approach is better. There's all kinds of studies out there that I browsed through that show the harmful impacts of time change in general. They show the period of time following the time change. There's increases in seizures, strokes, heart attacks, workplace injuries, lost work days, decreased worker productivity. But largely, the research points to the changing of the clocks causing the problems, more so than pointing to one approach or the other being the reason for the health problems and economic problems and things like that. People with epilepsy and other conditions that cause seizures see a rise in incidence the week after the change. Heart attacks go up as well. A study that was done by the University of Michigan, the University of Colorado, and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in 2014 found a 24% increase in heart attacks the Monday following the time change. And there's other studies showing the same thing. A study by Finnish researchers in 2016 found an increase in strokes up to 25% the week after the time change. Another study by the University of Colorado showed an increase in car accidents. An economist with the University of Oregon found an increase in workplace injuries. There's also a 67% increase in lost work days, according to an article in the Journal of Applied Psychology. So you can see there really is a cost to this between medical care and sick days, heart attacks, car accidents, lost productivity. That's not nothing. That's an economic cost, and it's a personal cost to Nebraskans. So I do think there is a very strong argument to be made against changing the clocks twice a year. There is research to show an increase in economic activity that could flow from going to permanent daylight savings time like my bill proposes. An extra hour of daylight during the winter months can yield extra consumer activity, extra spending, and enhance economic activity in our state, and that's good for Nebraska. I mean, a lot of us experience some depression in the winter months just from the lack of sunlight after work. And it's hard to get yourself out of the couch and go out somewhere. So if consumers had a little extra daylight to get out there and spend, do something with their friends, it's good for businesses, jobs, state revenue. As a shop owner myself, I've been a retailer for about 20 years. It would be great for us to increase foot traffic in the evening hours. Because I can tell you, in 20 years of owning shops, when you get into standard time, when you get into the winter, you know, even though it's not technically late, you know, the shop's open till 7, between 5 and 7, no one's really coming around. And after years, you know, 2 decades of that, I think the correlation is the sunlight. You know, people just don't really go out the same way as they do in the spring and summer and fall. One study I thought was interesting that Senator Breezy shared when he introduced the bill was that JP Chase did a study in 2016 just to assess the economic impact of daylight savings time. And they did it by comparing credit card spending 30 days before and after daylight savings time. And then they compared that spending to Phoenix. They kind of used Phoenix as a control because they don't change their time. So what they found was that average credit card spending increased by nearly 2% for the month after daylight savings time. And they found a decrease of 3.5% after the start of standard time. So basically, what this JP Chase study found was that when you get more hours after work, credit card spending goes up 2%. When it's dark, it goes down 3.5%. So, you know, there's some evidence based on some great data that there is increased consumer spending. And as far as federal action, the U.S. Senate passed the Sunshine Protection Act in 2022, but it has not been voted on by the House. There have been continued calls for congressional action on this topic. President Trump and some of his more prominent cabinet members and advisors like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have also spoken about intentions to do the same thing. Over the past 5 years, 20 states have joined this movement. It's a strong signal for Congress to act. This bill also allows for an order of authorization by the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, so that could be a possibility as well. And when something happens at the federal level, things could be moving pretty quickly, and we don't want Nebraska to be left behind. Passing the bill now just allows us to be ready. Another thing I'd say about the time change is that people get used to whatever we end up doing. The data shows that the week, the month, whatever, after a time change, there's a lot of health issues, accidents, lost productivity, but generally people get used to it. So whether we go to standard time and it's, you know, dark at night all year long, or we go to daylight savings time, we get a little extra sunlight, people will get used to whatever thing we end up doing. There's other countries in the world that do permanent, you know, standard time or daylight savings time, and you just get used to whatever it is you end up doing. So this is what I'm advocating for. Honestly, I'd like to just stop the madness and stop changing the clocks. And this is one of the most popular bills that I hear about every single year. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for introducing the bill. Senator Lanowski.
Yeah, Husky Lanowski.
Husky Lanowski.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Senator Hunt, for your testimony. First of all, as an Army guy, I'm glad the Air Force let you guys sleep in. Very nice of them. Very nice of them.
It took a long time for you to come up with that.
I've been waiting. Senator Hunt, so the one thing you've said is people get used to it. So as I listen to testimony on both sides, it makes me think of going to the store and not knowing if I should buy 1 cookie or 3 cookies. Maybe it's in between.
Get 3 cookies, but
So one place in the world, they have split this time into half. So we changed by half hour, and then everybody, or nobody, I guess, was happy. But they split that difference, and it kind of made sense to not do fully one or fully the other. Has that ever been studied, or have you seen any types of studies?
I will share with you that this year, maybe a couple days ago, that was the suggestion of former Senator Erdman. So he contacted me with that brilliant idea. So, you know what? If If that's what the legislature wants to do, I'm on board.
Okay, thank you.
Split the difference with half an hour?
What's that?
Is that what you're saying, split the difference with
Yes,
half an hour?
yes. For example, right now in Afghanistan, it's like 5 minutes till the hour rather than 25 after.
Okay, sure.
You just want there not to be. Well,
Stop the madness.
I'm trying to keep the kids playing baseball at
I
night. I'm
don't
trying to
care
make the
if right now
golfers
it's
happy.
1:15 or 7:15. I'm not changing my clock.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Are there any other questions for the committee? Senator Kavanaugh.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I don't know if I can follow that. So I have real trouble with the spring forward fallback understanding. So I'm just looking at, as an example, Senator, thank you for bringing this bill, by the way. So I pulled up, let's see, I think it's December 30th. Right now, sunrise is at 7:50. So under your bill, it would be at 8:50?
Yes.
Okay. And then
Right?
sunset is at 5:08, it would be at 6:08.
Right.
Okay. I'm just trying to.
I had my staff pull up a map to share with you guys too,
I do
because
enjoy your
the map from before only showed sunrise. Now, I'm a night owl. The time of sunrise is not interesting to me. I will be asleep. I don't care what time it is. And
That's
so
what Senator Kavanaugh's, yeah.
what my map shows you is if you're cool and you go to parties and stuff like that, this shows how late you can stay out and still have some daylight.
Well, I'm wearing a gray suit today to demonstrate that I do enjoy having a good time.
That you are cool.
I would say, the thing I enjoy, the distinction between your map and the map from the folks from Mr. P, is that your map has the lines are going from the southeast to the northwest, and his has the lines going from the northeast to the southwest, which I'm assuming has something to do with which time of year you're representing as the preferred time of year. So I appreciate that the distinction was drawn there. But my other question is, are you here representing the man?
I have never represented the man and never will.
I didn't think
I
so.
famously have problems with men, so.
Thank you for bringing the bill.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. We'll now open on LB34 proponents. Welcome back.
Madam Chair, members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, this testimony will sound familiar.
In reverse order?
In reverse order. Senator Kavanaugh, I would note that I'm in a gray suit today too, just for the record. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sanders and members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Joseph Kohout, K-O-H-O-U-T, and I'm the registered lobbyist for the Nebraska Golf Alliance, and I appear before you today on their behalf in support of LB34. The Nebraska Golf Alliance, as I mentioned before, is a coalition of golf-related industries. We speak with one voice on issues affecting the golf industry. We testify today in support of LB34 because there, again, are over 300 golf courses in Nebraska that would benefit from the change to year-round daylight savings time. The positive economic impact could be significant. In 2023, municipal golf courses throughout the state hosted over 500 golfers. Again, this is data self-collected and chose to respond to from mid-March to Labor Day, generating over $700,000 in revenue. For some courses, leagues after 4 p.m. accounted for 35 to 40% of yearly revenue, and additionally, golf instruction programs reported that nearly 50% of their golf lessons are taught after 4 p.m. It is safe to say that evening hours are crucial to Nebraska golf, with more evening daylight hours throughout the year. Our industry, Nebraska golfers, and the tours and Nebraska tourism will benefit. For these reasons, we would ask you to advance LB34 to general file, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents on LB 34?
This is a strange coalition, Mayor.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sanders and members of the committee. My name is Jason Jackson, J-A-S-O-N, J-A-C-K-S-O-N, and I'm here to testify in favor of the bill. As I mentioned in my opposition testimony to LB302, my primary interest is in this bill is youth sports and young athletes and affording them the opportunities to compete after school. I'm skeptical that if we were to eliminate or reduce daylight savings time, that those same opportunities would be available to them. Conversely, I think if we were to go to permanent daylight savings time, that would expand the opportunities for young people to compete in sports. Listening to Senator Hunt's opening, I was reminded of a joke that a friend of mine once told me, which is the only thing people hate more than change is the status quo. That definitely seems to be at play here. It would be nice if there was a compromise available, because it does seem to be kind of a zero-sum game. But you know, I've just spent a lot of time on elementary school soccer fields watching 8-year-old girls run around at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm skeptical of how that type of activity could be accommodated for those young people if you were forced to move it up to 4 p.m. And then now you have parents that those children can't do that activity unless the parent isn't working or the parent has the flexibility to get out of work. And so much of those after-school youth activities are geared around the conclusion of the workday, and if there isn't available sunlight after the workday and after the school day, young people simply won't have those opportunities to compete with their friends and develop the life skills that we hope they'll learn from the youth sports experience. So I hope you'll take that into consideration. And with that, that concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Checking to see if there are any questions from the committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other proponents on LB34? Any opponents on LB34?
Oh, you need the green sheet again, yes.
Yes. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's a good day. Once again, my name is Mr. JP. Last name is spelled Papa Echo Alpha. First name is Juliet Alpha Yankee. And I am the president of the nonprofit Save Standard Time, the co-chair of the Coalition for Permanent Standard Time as before. I am here opposing this bill for permanent daylight time with all respect to the bill author, Senator Hunt. Daylight saving time, once again, is a government mandate to wake an hour early. And that's not fair. That's not the business of the government. The clock should be set as objectively as possible to the sun, which is what standard time is. We've tried permanent daylight time before in the 40s and the 70s, and both times it was unpopular and quickly reversed, especially in these states like yours on the western edge of the time zone. It makes your sunrise dangerously late. It could put the sunrise past 8 o'clock in the morning when most school and work starts for 3 to 4 months, as late as 9 o'clock in the morning in many counties. People need that morning light to perform well in school and in sports and in the workplace. When you're waking people up too early, they're sleeping less. When they're sleeping less, their grades fall. They get into car accidents, sometimes as high as 20% higher fatal car accidents. School sports injuries are higher, and the recovery time from injuries is higher when we're sleeping less, when we're on permanent daylight time. Anybody who really wants daylight saving time, I would implore them simply to start their own day earlier. That's what daylight time is forcing people to do. And if you're a night owl, generally you don't want to be waken up earlier. So if you're a night owl, you probably prefer standard time, not daylight time. Although many associate daylight time with the summer, and so they'll be emotionally drawn toward daylight time for the summer. But I assure you, nothing in your power can cancel summer or magically turn winter into summer. There's a time for every season. And that's what standard time does. Now, I've named there are many groups, dozens for health, safety, education, and the economy endorsing standard time and opposing daylight time. There are also many journalists on both the left and the right, so this is a very nonpartisan issue. Golf was mentioned, and yes, in Arizona we have permanent standard time, and we have a lot of golf. I like to play golf. We play golf from sunup to sundown, and it does just fine. And Nebraska being further north, you would actually have more daylight than us just by nature than we do in Arizona. So I don't think that quite holds water, and I would ask you not to favor any one industry such as golf, but to favor all industries, all sectors, which are more benefited by standard time and hurt by daylight saving time. If you are serious about ending the clock change, and I hope you are, permanent standard time is the only way permitted under federal law. So you could do it right now with no contingency if you want. If you want to add a contingency, that makes it a little more politically viable. Set it to just any one neighboring state. And I mentioned North Dakota and South Dakota are looking very seriously at this. And Kansas and Missouri and Arkansas and others are also looking at it as well. So no on this bill, yes on the previous bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Check to see if there are any questions. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks again for being here, Mr. P.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, first off, Arizona, you guys can golf like right now, right?
I'm very busy right now.
Well, I mean, not you at the moment, but I mean, this time of year. This time of year, people can golf in Arizona.
With the weather, yes. And when it's wintry weather right here, right now, I don't think I would enjoy being out golfing at this time of the year here in Nebraska.
In here, yeah. But, I mean, and there's other arguments about maybe you guys shouldn't have as much grass and those sorts of things, but I digress. My question is, could we just move, like you said, you know, you're the eastern edge of a time zone, and it can be dangerously late, or is it western edge?
Western edge.
Western edge. Could we just move the edges of the time zones, or does that just shift where the?
They've already been shifted. So ideally, the boundary between the time zones of Mountain and Central would fall through the middle of your state. But county by county, you've slowly pushed that boundary closer to Colorado. So it's already kind of stretched a little bit, favoring the later sunsets already.
Okay.
There is a process for requesting a change in time zones. You would resolve to petition the Department of Transportation saying we'd like these counties to move from Mountain to Central or whatnot, and you have to list the reasons, and they review it and they get back to you. And the DOT has a lot of information on their website that I can provide you with on how that's done and how it's been done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? See none? Thank you very much
Thanks
for your
again.
testimony. Are there any other opponents? Please. Welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairman Sanders, members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. I'm Patrick Greenwood, Patrick Greenwood, from Omaha, and I am here in opposition to LB34. I have just a few remarks I'd like to add. As far as the federal action, it doesn't require neighboring states to be in agreement with it. If there is federal action, Nebraska will not be left behind. Nebraska will be brought in as part of the federal decision-making. Though, if it's daylight saving time year-round, that's what it'll be. There won't be any questions about it. Daylight saving time upsets the balance of available sunlight. There's only so much sunlight available at any given day. And daylight saving time moves that balance to so that more hours of daylight are registered after 12 o'clock noon on the clock, when in actuality it calls noon. It calls 1 o'clock p.m. is actually what noon would be under standard time. There will be, again, there'll be I guess my number one reason for opposing LB34 is we don't need it. It interjects unnecessary complication for really no benefit. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the consumerism, the consumer, the economic aspects. Will institutions adjust? Will sports schedules adjust? Will golf schedules adjust? Those all go back to my thought originally that these are all economic issues, and we really need to focus on the health aspect of this. Institutions will follow the money, in my experience. They will not fall apart because the time clock has changed. They'll find a way to make they have a duty to make their institutions work, and they'll find a way to do that. Jay's already talked about the morning person and night person issue. Senator Hunt stole my closing line, to stop the madness. I totally agree with that. Get used to it, I don't agree with that. I think we should be able to say what the man should do and not just get used to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Let me check to see if there are any questions from the committee. None. Yeah, it was easy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any other opponents? Welcome back.
Hello, again. Hello, so my name is Ryan Nickell, R-Y-A-N-N-I-C-K-E-L-L, speaking on behalf of myself in opposition to LB34. So for the same reason that I support LB302, I'm not going to repeat my comments. I just wanted to add that, yeah, in the interest of time, that having to change your clocks twice a year is also a waste of time. So please decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on. Let's see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you again for your testimony. Are there any other opponents? Any in the neutral? Okay, this time Senator Hunt to close, and while you're coming up, for position comments for a hearing record, proponents 32, opponents 12, and 4 in the neutral.
Great, thank you, Senator Sanders. I appreciate the points made by the opposition. And I want to be clear on the record too that I don't intend to make light of the, serious health consequences and adverse effects people have statistically much more often during periods after time changes, whether that's when we change to daylight savings time or when we change back to standard time. People get disoriented. It does affect the way we work, and it affects our productivity, and in worst cases, it can have extremely serious health effects. So I want to be clear that I'm not making light of that, but, in this work, there's always, if there's a chance for levity, I think it's good to take it. And this is a bill I really like doing every year, and an issue that I like discussing. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to take them.
Are there any questions from the committee? See none.
Thank
That
you.
was easy. Thank you very much for introducing LB34. This will now close to the hearings for today. Thank you, and